right, so we've got a sign-in, we've got the agenda in the chat box, and we've also got a digital workbook. And the digital workbook link is also in your agenda, but we can drop that into the chat as well. But please do take a second and sign in, and make sure you have access to all of those things. All right, so we always start with the land acknowledgement. So I'm going to read the land acknowledgement. As a land grant institution, the History Geography Project at UCLA acknowledges that the Tongva Gabrielino peoples, as the traditional caretakers of the land originally known as Tongva Gar, the Los Angeles Basin to the South Channel Islands. And on this slide, we also see we have some resources that you can use with students. The nativeland.ca map is really good. Oh, are we not offering that? Sorry, the nativeland.ca map is really good. And we also have a land acknowledgement activity linked. Sorry. All right, so we are the UCLA History Geography Project. I know some folks are familiar with our work. I see some familiar faces. Hello, good to see you again. But for those who don't know us, we are all teachers. So all of us have been classroom teachers, and we really believe in collaborating with teachers to make history relevant and empowering for students. So we are here to work with you and to help you empower your students. We are housed under two different offices. So we work out of UCLA Center X, and Center X was founded in the wake of the 1990s uprisings in Los Angeles. And the idea behind Center X is praxis is the main idea, the idea of bringing educational theory and research into the classrooms in Los Angeles where it's needed. We are also part of the California History Social Science Project, and you may be familiar with some of our sister sites throughout the state. So there are many history social science project sites throughout the state. We have partners who are doing great work in Davis, Berkeley, Irvine. You may have worked with some of our other partners there. Now it's time for introductions. So I'll start with me since I'm already talking. But as I said before, I'm Beta Lindsay. I'm the Associate Director of the UCLA History Geography Project. And prior to this role, I was teaching at Venice High School. I was actually teaching at Venice High School up until October of this year. And I had been a teacher in LAUC or a teacher in Los Angeles for about a decade. And I was teaching US History, AP African American Studies, Ethnic Studies, AP US History. I'll toss it to Danny.
Hey everyone, good evening. My name is Danny Diaz. I am the director of the UCLA History Geography Project and a former teacher. Taught at Roosevelt High School and at El Rancho High School in Pico Rivera. And I'm excited to be here with you all today. Pass it to Amps.
I am Amparo Chavez Gonzalez, affectionately known as Amps, or not affectionately, depending on what I say. And I am very excited. I have been with UCLA for 20 years, and I have been an educator for 33. I have mostly taught high school students, but I've also taught 3rd, 4th, and 5th graders, and 6th graders, and 7th graders. But anyway, yes, 3rd to 12th grade. I'm very excited to be here. I'm really excited about the sources we have and talking to you about writing.
Hi, everyone. My name is Ben Wong, and I am an instructional coach with the HGP. And prior to joining the UCLA team, I was a classroom teacher for 12 years. And then I also worked for 8 years as an instructional coach in history social science, serving middle school and high schools across LA. And I'm really glad to be here with everyone this afternoon. Thank you.
So on this slide, you'll see our teacher leaders, and we are always looking for new teacher leaders. And these are teachers that we partner with to help us develop curriculum, present lessons, and kind of, help lead this work throughout the region. So if you're interested in becoming a teacher leader, please do let us know. And we are always looking for more, but here are some of the great folks who we've been working with all around this region and doing this work. Good. And here is our faculty advisor, Dr. Kelly Little Hernandez, and she is an award-winning historian and scholar. She's a MacArthur Genius Fellow. She's done some really incredible work with regard to race, social justice, policing, African-American studies, urban planning, all of that. She has some really excellent books. We strongly recommend that you check out her new one, Bad Mexicans, is really excellent, kind of about the transnational resistance in the Mexican Revolution and relationships to Los Angeles. It's really exciting history. So we highly recommend you check that one out. Here is our agenda for tonight. So we're going to do welcome and introductions. Then we'll have a community builder. We'll talk about some of the historical context, a DBI poster, We're going to take a break, and then we'll get more into the nuts and bolts of the writing process. And we have some really kind of excellent writing support strategies, structure academic controversy, and then we will close out for the evening. And you also have a copy of the agenda in the chat box that you can review. And lastly, here are our objectives for today. So we're going to collaborate to explore the connections between rigor, literacy, engagement, and writing, and also resources that are culturally responsive and relevant, engaging and rigorous, and culturally relevant and sustaining pedagogies that can help teachers support students with developing writing in history and social science classrooms.
And with that, welcome everyone. We're going to start with our community builder today, and we're going to start our workshop on writing with all of you getting a chance to respond in a journal. So in a minute on your digital workbook, you will see on the subsequent slides here, link to a reading and a video or video. They're both. You have a link to a reading and a video. And you're going to get to choose which one you want to interact with for this part before you get to the journaling. And then after you read the text or watch the video, you're going to have an opportunity to jot down your answers to those two questions that you see on the screen. And this is just let me give you a brief introduction to what the texts are. These two sources are depictions of what it feels like to be an Asian American living in the United States in the 21st century. And you have two different contexts there. And in response to those questions, I want us to consider what kind of APIDA curriculum were these individuals exposed to in school? And if not at school, where do you think they learned about their APIDA history or identity? And just to get everyone on the same page with regard to acronyms here, I will be using the terms APIDA, AAPI, or Asian American interchangeably, but they have different distinct meanings for different peoples. And APIDA here refers to Asian Pacific Islander Desi American, and Desi represents South Asian communities. You may also see the term Native Hawaiian as a separate context of Pacific Islander, because again, the Pacific Ocean is huge geographically. So there are people that ask to be seen. And just as a caveat, I will be using those terms interchangeably, but they're not necessarily interchangeable. So with that being said, I'm going to ask all of you to skim the text and or preview the video. So we have an excerpt right here from Jeff Chang. He's a hip hop journalist and writer, and he wrote a book a few years back called "We Gonna Be All Right: Notes on Race and Resegregation." And then on the video right here, we have a young woman named Kanwen Shu. She is Chinese American, and she speaks of her experience growing up in Idaho, in the upper Midwest, including Idaho and North Dakota. So go ahead and choose your source that you're going to be reading or watching, and you can spend the next 4 minutes to get yourself situated. And then you're going to take 3 minutes to journal in response to those prompts right there before we put you into breakout rooms. So you're going to get a chance to share out your responses with your partners in a little bit. So that being said, I just gave a lot of directions right here. I did a lot of talking. If you have any questions, please throw up a hand. Otherwise, we're going to get you started in about 30 seconds with your reading or viewing, and make sure that you are on mute if you are playing the video. All right, go ahead and take the next 3.5 minutes to get started with your reading or watching the video. And then after that, I'll come on the microphone again and ask you to start journaling your responses to the prompts. And then we'll send you off to breakout rooms. All right, that's about time for the video and for the reading. If you haven't done so already, please go ahead and jot down your response to the two prompts there. What kind of learning experience did the individuals have in school? And if not at school, where did they learn about their APITA history or identity? So take 3 more minutes to jot down your responses. All right, we're gonna get ready to put you into breakout rooms. You're gonna be with a partner. We're gonna set you up in pairs, and you're gonna debrief the reading with your partner. And it's okay if both of you watch the video or if both of you read the excerpt from the book. We're gonna open that up, and you're gonna get 4 minutes to talk with your partner about your response to the readings. How did either Kenwen or Jeff form their stories of their AAPI identities?
Ben, I'm going to open up rooms right now.
Terrific, thank you. So you're going to be in the breakout rooms for about 4 minutes. All right, let's hear some of our reactions to the video and or the excerpt. What did we notice were the differences between Canwen's experiences and Jeff's experiences? You can drop it in the chat, or you can turn on your mic and speak to the whole group here.
I can speak a little bit to the video. So as far as the curriculum that she seemed to be exposed to, it was evident that it was a very like Eurocentric white curriculum that she had come to know and really like developed her own identity almost subconsciously over time. And in doing so, there was this like subconscious norming of whiteness and kind of rejecting of her own heritage. And I thought that was a really interesting and thoughtful way to explain it. And as far as like where she may have learned about her APITA history and identity, if not from school, my partner Leslie and I were both agreeing that it was most likely from family and perhaps friends at school or later in life, but maybe not directly through the curriculum, but most likely from people in her direct community beyond the school setting.
Sure, thank you for sharing. Because we learn not just in a school setting, but all around us. Somebody else with a reaction to either the video or the text? So one consideration here would be how storytelling is an act of empowerment and courage. And I am celebrating these two voices right here because those experiences may not mirror our own. But one thing to consider would be how the experiences of the AAPI community is vast. And that's something for us to consider when we think about how we're going to tell these stories in our history classes and incorporate that into writing, specifically with how we are going to build those skills in our students. So without further ado, we're going to get a chance to process a little bit more with how we're going to write in our history classes. And I'm going to toss this over to Ams.
Sorry, that was my get it out there. Cough. Sorry about that, everyone. So today our topic is really thinking about and centering on how do we get kids writing in history, right? And a lot of us feel like, oh my God, it's torture. They feel like it's torture. We feel like it's torture. And so we could go on to the next slide. And one of the things that we really, really want to emphasize is that for many of us who are history, social studies teachers, there's been a lot of I believe, diminishing our role and elevating, promoting, and developing literacy skills for our students, right? Oftentimes we're told, oh, do what the English teachers do. It's mostly English. But really, the courses and the pieces that our students are not doing well in when they go to college or in life, right, is reading documents. It's analyzing, it's writing those papers for college courses or community college courses that are history or politics or sociology. And so we play a really important role. At the same time, we know that there's a lot of cover and we know that we struggle with giving kids time to revise and to edit, right? And so today we want to share with you guys some ways of doing that with some checklists, with some templates that we think will help you. And also for you to think about your Common Core standards say small and longer periods of writing. And so journals count, right? When you have kids doing some sustained writing, that also counts. And it doesn't always have to be a big, huge essay. We're going to talk about that as well. So how do you document some of that learning without it having to be a 5-page essay? All right, next. And so one of the things that today we're talking about is, all right, how do I think about the content? How do I think about the pedagogies that I'm going to use to get young people to write, right? What does that look like? And how do I do that in a way that is culturally relevant and sustaining for the students that I work with? And so we're going to be today, because we're focusing on APEDA communities, we're going to be looking at that, right? What does it mean to bring materials to your classroom that are going to be rigorous, engaging, and get kids writing? Okay, next slide. And for that, we need to think about what does it mean to portray communities, whether we are members of them or we are not, in ways that are showing the richness, the complexity, the nuance, the multiple perspectives of this community, and that doesn't only focus on one aspect of the community or individuals. So we want to share with you this definition that comes from folks working in ethnic studies, but we think that it's a critical definition that I think we can all use as we think about our role in providing materials for students that are culturally relevant. And next slide. And as a reminder, this comes from and connects to the fact that in California, we have a FAIR Act, right? That really encourages us to include the histories of underrepresented groups in history, right? And so how do we add these underrepresented groups? How do we think about what that looks like when we think about Asian Americans, when we think of API communities? What does that look like and what does that mean? And Danny, we're getting a black square. Thank you. Something pops up. We get pop-ups all the time. And so today we're going to talk to you about being very intentional as teachers right around our content and what are APEDA scholars telling us about what we should be teaching about Asian American, Pacific Islander, Desi Americans in our classrooms, right? And although Tony De La Rosa is not the author of what is called an Asian crit, he very concisely wrote it in his book. And so we want to give you some time to check it out and to think about it. Next slide. Okay, so this is called an Asian critical framework. It's really short. He just gives us like 2 or 3 sentences, and it asks you to think about how you should be teaching from the perspective of the APEDA community in our country and around the world. So if somebody could put that in the chat. just in case it's also in your workbook, and you're gonna find that link in your workbook, just in case, on slide 20, just in case if you want to get it from there, and then we can put the link. Okay. We're gonna give you about 3 or 4 minutes just to look at those categories and to think about how this is inviting you to reconsider, reimagine how you teach about APITA communities in the US and around the world. So you will hear some music. We'll bring you back in about 4 minutes, and then we'll put some comments in the chat. If you want to put comments in the chat as you read, that's also great. Right? Come back at 5:09. All right, everyone. Take a couple of moments to put some commentary in the chat. How is this inviting you to really reimagine what and how you teach about Asian American communities in the United States? By the way, thank you to all of you who have your camera on. It really does make a difference to see your beautiful faces. I know it's hard when you're at home, but it still really does. It warms my heart. So I appreciate it. All right. I see some folks typing, thinking, so I'll wait a couple of seconds. I know this brought up stuff. Come on now.
Dr. Amps, may I just share? It's just
Yeah,
easy.
go ahead.
Okay, I just jotted down some quotes from Tenet 2. So first the phrase or the term anti-essentialist, my first time hearing that. Also what was salient was disrupt hegemonic or disrupt hegemony. And that last phrase or sentence in Tenet 2, where it just talks about ways to disrupt it through immigration, through migration, through human rights, language, phenotype. And I just was thinking, and I had this conversation with a colleague, how it's so important for us teachers to always reflect, because a lot of times we'll forget about things that worked, but we'll also neglect to embrace new things, right? And that's why PD is so important. So I was just, as I was reading that tonight, I just thought about all of that and just how I need to just take a moment to pause, reflect more to make sure that I'm utilizing all these things in my instruction so that I'm reaching all of my students and that I'm leveraging all voices like consistently. And it's really hard. I mean, as y'all know, you're educators, but we have to really take the time to reflect to make sure that we're conscientious and that we keep doing that.
I agree with you, right? And I think somebody put in the chat, Diana Perez put, women, right? Oftentimes we're so used to focusing in on leaders and, a lot of the leaders throughout history books are mostly men. We got to remember, right? We got to think about women. We got to think about queer communities. We need to think about immigrant communities that are coming to the US, right? And what are the nuances of teaching about all those? And this framework really invites us to think about that. For me, one of the most powerful pieces of that is that, and we're going to talk about it next, is that idea that we should be connecting to praxis, right? And social justice, and we should be connecting kids to those movements. I think we know right now there's a lot of folks out involved in activism, right? And a lot of them are young people at our colleges, right? And on our campuses. And so how do we make sure that our kids see themselves in those movements as well?
I love you too.
Yeah, it's very important. All right, we're going to go on to our next slide. So given that thinking, we're going to be looking at what we think about as a DBI poster. And we know that many of you have worked with the DBQ project. We're kind of extending that idea to make it into an inquiry, not just a a shorter yes, no question, but a larger question that looks at an inquiry in a larger, more amplified way. Can we go to the next slide? And again, Danny, I'm getting that square. I don't know why it keeps on popping up. We get a lot of Zoom calls, and a lot of times the scores pop up with people are trying to send us things or do that. So what is this, right? It's really a way for kids to analyze and corroborate primary sources. Today, we're going to share with you a digital version. We usually, when we're in person, we get you guys involved, and it's a hands-on experiential activity where you're cutting and pasting and moving things around. So if you're interested in looking at that pieces too, let us know. Next slide. All right, Danny, can you share with us the next couple of slides?
Yeah, these are some photos that we've taken over the years of some DBQ posters that we've done with teachers. This particular one was actually done by a teacher, Tara Reed, who I'm not sure if Tara's still out in Chino Valley Unified, but she was there when we were out there, and she did this DBQ poster with her 7th graders. And the inquiry question that she was asking was focused on Mansa Musa's journey to West Africa and the sort of impact that it had on West Africa. So you'll notice the sources there organized. If you squint your eyes, you'll see a thesis statement. And then when you give students these posters, inevitably there's a creative aspect that emerges when they do these. And so you'll see some creativity there. The next slide is some more examples. The one on the left is one that Amparo did with a group of teachers just recently. And this one was focused on California and the experiences of marginalized groups in California with the inquiry question of, was California land for all? Again, just notice how the structure, you'll notice in the middle, you have like a list of facts. Pado's going to walk you through that process, and then you'll see the sources that were used and the annotations on them with the thesis on the bottom. And then this is back in the days when I was a teacher at El Rancho High School, a long time ago, and they are there's some of my students, first period students with the first period faces, showing you their DBQ poster. And again, they made it 3D. You could tell sort of those things pop out. So yes, this is intended to be a hands-on fun activity. Teachers generally love this activity when we do it in person, and students in our experience really enjoy this activity. And so we're excited to share it with you.
All right, wonderful. And so go ahead, Danny.
Yeah, so we also just want to just quickly share with you these slides we've I'm certain included in the digital workbook, and they're for you to cut and paste if you want to have those standards in a lesson plan that you're turning in or writing them on your board, just for reference to let you know that these hit on a lot of literacy pieces. So here's the reading and the writing standards from the Common Core. And here are speaking and listening. The strategy really does it all. And then we even included some ELD standards for you all to reference. And one more slide. Whoops, nope, that was it. So yeah, those are your ELD standards. So if you have any questions about these, just let us know in the chat, but I'm going to turn it back over to Amparo.
Yeah, thank you, Danny. And so our document breaks inquiry is going to really have us thinking about how have members of the APITA communities resisted oppression, right? That's going to be our big question. You're going to get a common historical background, and then based on that historical background, you will create a list of facts, and then we'll walk you through the next steps, which will be analyzing sources and then discussing and ending with you creating a thesis statement using the sources. And so the next slide. All right, you're going to see in your workbook, you have slides 39 through 42. Before you go there, I want to show you the instructions, okay? You're going to have a historical background. Next slide. And it looks like this. And we have, Danny has created these wonderful annotation post-its that are digital post-its, okay? And you can type on those and move them. Can you move them, Danny, so people can see? You can move this wherever you want. Did we take a screenshot of that? Is that what I did? That's what I did. That's okay.
So pretend
You can,
clicking and dragging it. Whoa, look at that. So you just click on these and then you drag them, and then you can either
They'll
use it
move.
as a highlighter or you could add text to it, like Amparo was saying.
Yes, I apologize. I took the screenshot. That was me. Next slide. And really what you're doing now are going to be steps 1 and 2. So if you could click, right? You're going to talk to one another about the question, and then you're going to consider the historical context. And then next slide. And then I have begun to type in some important related facts in our an example of a digital workbook. So that's really what you're doing. The historical background essay is about 2 or 3 slides. It's 3 slides. And then and come up with your relevant facts. I would say the most 10, I would say 6. And these are facts that are undisputable, right? They're not opinions. They're not a thesis. They're 1882, there was a Chinese Exclusion Act, for example, right? That caused many, that caused the community to shrink. That would be those kinds of facts, historical background. Okay, we're gonna open up breakout rooms. You're gonna have some time to read first, and then talk to your group members. And there'll be 3 of you in a breakout room, Jenny? 3? Yeah, 3 sounds good, right? And we're gonna come back at 5:30. So read and then come back at 5:30. All right, wonderful. So here we go.
Mm-hmm. Thank you, Margaret, for sharing that.
We have a couple of people. Melissa, do you need help jumping into your room? Margaret and Malia.
No, I'm good. I'm just on the phone trying to figure all the buttons out. So,
Oh, I'm sorry.
no. Just
Yeah, it's harder on the phone.
Somebody want to jump into 4 since Leslie is on her own, or I can move her, but it sounds like Melissa's
Trying to
navigating.
join.
Yeah.
Yeah, Risa DM'd me. She is at the eye doctor, but she's
Oh.
still trying to listen.
Yeah. So should
yeah,
I?
I need help. I don't know where it went. I saw it pop up and then it went away.
Okay, Melissa, I'm going to do it again for you. Okay.
Thank you.
Oh, she joined. Oh no, she got moved to a different room.
I had, yeah. Sorry. All right. And so Risa,
I'm gonna move her to room 2.
okay. So put Melissa in 3. Okay, just as long as people have people to talk to, we're fine.
Yeah, well, they'll be okay.
Yeah. Okay, Amps, I could reference this if you want. Just tell me, like, show them, Danny, and then I could switch
Yeah.
slides to this. Yeah.
And I also, yeah, sorry, I should have reminded you to do that.
There's in here on slide 7. Okay.
They're actually further down, Danny. I think we ended up putting it in twice. They're actually, because they're typing it in on 39 through 42.
Oh, and the workbook.
Yeah.
Okay. Let me see.
Oh, yeah, 39 to 42. the work. Yeah, that's what they need to be.
Okay.
Oh, she
She's
came back in.
She's having some problems.
Wonderful, everyone. So now we're going to take a moment and begin the next steps of your DBI, which will be to read and analyze the sources. And we're going to show you what they look like on your digital workbook, right? And so you have about 9 or 10 sources, and you have the opportunity, like Danny's going to show us, you have the opportunity again to annotate the sources, right? And to think about what they're telling you with regards to answering that DBI question. How did PETA communities fight or resist oppression, right? And so you want to start looking for evidence. You don't have to read them all. We know we gave you a lot. Excuse me, but we do that on purpose for the adults, and then you can pick which ones you want to use with your students, right? And how long you want to take with them. And then you're going to talk to your partners. You're going to think about what kinds of categories these sources are inviting you to think about, and how you have evidence for them in the sources. And if you go on to the next slide, Danny. And the next one, then you'll start using the Post-its that you have to type in. First of all, create your categories and then start typing in your evidence for how those are found in the resources we shared with
And I'll just demo that real quick for them, Hamps.
you. All right. Wonderful. And then we're going to bring you back at 5:43, and then we'll talk about what that looks like with regards to a thesis and how that's developing.
Right.
I think we could pause it. All right. I know that wasn't enough time. I know you guys like me are history nerds and you want to look at the sources. What we do want to invite you to think about is that the next step for this would be to develop a claim, right? So a PETA communities resisted oppression by would be my prompt on the bottom right. And then I would have 3 claims or 3 categories. My categories would now become the ways that I develop my claim. And so I know I was in one room where people were starting to come up with categories. Anybody want to throw out a category real quick before we go to break?
I think we talked about protests and alliances.
Perfect, right? So, and one more?
We had one more, but we can stop.
No, go ahead.
Okay, and legal means.
Thank you. So those would be the 3 categories, right? If you were taking notes in a group or you were cutting out documents, you would have those categories and those cutouts from the paper, right? From the documents. Here, you would put them digitally on your paper, on your digital workbook. I want to make sure you have a break. We will come back promptly. Make sure that you type up your thesis or your claims as well, but we will come back promptly at 5:50 to begin with the next part of our workshop. Please take care of yourself, get some water, stretch, all that good stuff, and we'll see you. We're now going to begin talking a little bit more about the work that we've done and preparing to write. So next slide. Right. We've been doing some thinking. We journaled. We did some analysis of documents. We read. We sorted the documents. Hopefully you engaged in some conversations with your colleagues. Obviously, This is a short workshop. And we started to draft a claim, right? So we've done a lot of that work already. And so we want to give you an opportunity to see a pre-planning document that we have. We know that you guys are adults. You may not necessarily need to use it, but we're going to share it. So next slide. Okay. And this is in preparation. Again, some of you are middle school teachers. You're going to get an 8-sentence paragraph. You can click on it. And the high school teachers, you can click on an 11-sentence paragraph. And what this is a truncated digital version of a traditional 5-paragraph essay. Again, your standards don't say they have to be essays, right? You can have them write. You can see what they're thinking, and then you can have them transfer it to writing, or you can grade the thinking at times, right? When you don't have a lot of time. It helps the kids build some confidence. They've got tons of resources when they say, I don't know what to think, miss. Go back and look at your chicken foot. You got your claims and your thesis there, and you did your evidence. You cut it up. Go look at your poster. Go look on your digital workbook, what you guys wrote, right? And so that really helps students. Next, click. All right. So we're going to give you some time to draft your 11-sentence paragraph. Because you should have a claim and you should have evidence from the resources that you read. Next slide. Okay, and this is what it looks like. This is the digital version of it. The first line, you're going to introduce your thesis. Then you're going to give us your first reason or your claim, right? So APIDA communities have fought oppression, right? Resisted oppression by building solidarity with other groups. And then you would give us your piece of specific evidence, explain it, right? Another way that they have fought oppression has been by legal means. That would be number 5, right? And so you start moving through that. Next slide.
One of the things I'll just add real quick, Amparo, when I use this strategy in my classroom, I used to have students highlight in colors and sort of had them do a self-check before they turned it in. And the colors should repeat themselves. In this case, yellow, green, blue, yellow, green, blue. And oftentimes my students would probably forget like the blue part, because in my experience, students really struggled with the commentary. And I just give them an opportunity to do some revisions before they turned it in. Okay, and you're muted, Amparo.
All of you now have the opportunity to go to, on your workbook, I believe it's 61. Am I frozen? Okay, no. Sorry. You're gonna, it told me I was unstable. I was like, okay, I already knew that. Talk to my psychologist. However, here I am, I'm at PD. Don't do this to me. You're gonna get an opportunity to play with this template, to type and to write. And then we're gonna do a little bit of giving each other feedback with the checklist and some stems. We're going to give you 6 minutes to start writing your 11-sentence paragraph. And just in case I wanted to, somebody put it in there for me. Thank you, colleagues. Okay, you have this template and you're going to be creating a copy and then typing in. Anybody have any questions? All right. Take some time for 5 minutes and then you're going to go back into your breakout room. Before you go back into breakout rooms, we'll give you some directions.
I can't get into the 8-paragraph one. I don't have access.
Thank you. You're going to see that in your workbook, you have 2 things that we thought were useful to have with students, which was 1, a checklist that you can have students fill out, and you can also do it yourself now if you'd like. And then also some questions to get unstuck, right? What happens when you get stuck and you don't know what to ask your partner? So you're going to be asked to go ahead and make a copy of those. They are also in your workbook, right? And we're going to put you in breakout rooms. You're going to be in there for about 5, maybe 6 minutes the most. And you're going to talk to your partner. You can share your screen, share what you wrote, and they're going to give you some quick feedback. Okay. So go ahead and can we please open up rooms?
My computer screen, and so I can't type over there. That's my problem. And it's just the way it is. And I don't know why the description should only be in the last inch, not even an inch. It's about 3/4 of an inch that I'm supposed to write stuff down. And anyway, the point being that we have looked at a huge number of things in this last hour and 40 minutes or so. And all of them, I think, have merit. But because it's been so fast and we haven't taken the time to do the work with ourselves, with each other, because we've had so many, we crammed so much in it. And I am also a person who's done that. That is not to say that somebody is terrible because they did it. But what happens is you don't get quite where you're going. And that's why I'm very, very interested in what you're doing. But I'm not with you at this point because it's too fast for me. And, you know, it's not like I haven't done this stuff before, but I can't do it as fast. And I do know that there's a number of people on the group here that I've worked with before. And I know that everybody's struggling in the same way. So, yes.
Sorry, try not to cough. I really appreciate those comments because I think that really reminds us about how we build time for PD, but also what it means to have time to process as teachers. And unfortunately, because of time constraints and everything else, right? We're only giving you a taste. So
Yeah.
I hear you. And I again want to say thank you. Folks are walking, folks are in the car waiting for their kids, and we know that we're rushing. And so I know that it's been a little hard for everyone. So all those pieces are really important. I want to point out that if some folks commented artwork in the chat, this DBI, we focused only on an educational settings. So you see, I did try to put like a flyer in there, but some of the artwork today would not be appreciated by us. It's kind of outdated artwork. Some of the students
Like
were
Rembrandt or
no, yeah, no, but in terms of oppression and resistance, right?
I'm sorry.
That wouldn't have been appropriate. So we invite you to play with these. Let us know if they work. And I really want to make sure that we get to our next piece because that's going to really be juicy and a lot of thought provoking. And I want to open up the mic for Ben. Thank you, everyone. Keep the comments coming and we'll respond.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much. So the next portion of our afternoon together is going to be on the structured academic controversy. So if you take a look at the next slide here, you'll see that we have a definition. And I didn't invent this. I wouldn't even be brave enough to claim any kind of authorship of the structured academic controversy, but it is a method that's an alternative to having a debate in the classroom. And that's one of the key considerations here because it's a manageable activity that you can do with your students in a single class period. It is structured so that you can really limit the scope of the conversation so that kids won't go off topic. It also requires students to focus on nuance and consensus instead of winning a debate. And the key consideration here is that it works as a great setup for writing. And this is just another way, similar to the DBI poster, to get students to talk and to collaborate and to work towards some consensus. And again, the main goal is not to win a debate, but more so to engage in a discussion that would allow other people to share ideas. And it's really a higher form of discourse that's not really modeled in our current political climate. So on our next slide, we're going to see the controversy part of a structured academic controversy. And if you're familiar with the Digital Inquiry Group, formerly known as SHEG, they have a whole bunch of them for world history and for US history classes on a range of topics, such as, was a New Deal a success? Was Abraham Lincoln a racist? Were African Americans free during Reconstruction? And the one that we're using today is the prompt here that you see on the screen. Were Asian American opponents of affirmative action misguided? And this brings in some current events from 2023. Last summer, the Supreme Court ruled that affirmative action in higher education for admissions was a violation of the 14th Amendment's Equal Protection Clause. So keeping that in mind, there's a lot of story behind it, and we're going to get some sources that speak to the prompt in a little bit, but I do want to walk us through a little bit with the structured academic controversy. So on the next slide, you'll see some directions on how this would be run in a classroom. And I'm not going to read the whole thing, but I also wanted to share in the chat a handout that we have for students to use as they are participating in their structured academic controversy. And the consideration here is that we use a small source set. No more than 4. 4 is a good number because you're also doing this in groups of 4 with your students. And again, the directions on the handout will guide students through the entire process. And you're going to do all of the steps, including the last one right there. If you click one more, there should be one more step. And you're just, again, taking a position on either side of the prompt. And the structured academic controversy prompts are typically going to be a yes or no question. And they are broad enough, but also juicy enough for students to pick a side and make a claim in defense of their statements. So if you'll take a look at the next slide right here, and just click through until you see all 5 steps. And the key here is to make sure that students get an opportunity to speak and listen, and to really focus on the norms of not interrupting, and to encourage students to jot down ideas. And that's part of the process. And the one thing that I would really emphasize with steps 2 and 4 is to really emphasize for students, were you listening to your opposing side's ideas, or were you waiting to talk? And that's, again, a tricky proposition for students, because many times, whether in middle school or in high school, they are really used to the idea of, I'm going to win a debate, I'm going to use all of that evidence that I have from these great sources, and I'm going to shut the other side down. And that's not the goal here. And the goal is to really emphasize listening. And then the last part here is to also work on building consensus. And that's another hard concept sometimes for kids to work through because they're still fixed on that debate mindset. So the next slide right here, we have some sentence starters, and you have this in your digital workbook. And these are just some considerations, again, on how to practice and model civil disagreement with among your classmates. So then on our next slide, I know this is just the antithesis of what we were just talking about in terms of cramming too much, but I do want us to consider the sources right here. And I don't think we're going to get to actually do the structured academic controversy, but I do want you to take a look at the source set. So if Danny, you can click on the link right there, and we can take a look at the readings there. So we have some background information on the students for fair admissions versus Harvard. And you can take a look at the readings right there. And I do work on providing context and background, because oftentimes students may not necessarily have all of the facts at their disposal. So they will need a little bit of setup before they get to the actual readings. And then I worked on excerpting the text so that you can get an idea of where the two sides are. And the goal here is to, again, stimulate conversation with interesting texts. And regardless of where you stand on the issue of affirmative action, it's important to consider what it means in our historical context of the Asian American community. So if we go back to our slides, again, imagine that we had completed the structured academic controversy, but I do want us to consider a couple of other things on the next slide. And then we'll skip this one. And the one thing that I do want us to consider is this quote from Oyan Poon. She's a professor at Colorado State University who focuses on higher education and equity. And one of the things that Professor Poon really emphasizes here is how affirmative action has been used as a political force within the Asian American community, and what that means for other groups, including Black, Indigenous, and Latinx communities, and how this is in contrast to the decades of solidarity that we may have read about in the source set that Amparo shared with us. So that's just a lot for us to consider. And again, I'm sorry that we didn't get to really delve into the documents and our structured academic controversy, but I do want to show how this fits in to a larger continuum of the activities that we were sharing with you today. So on that note, I know this is a lot that we were just processing, but I do want us to share any experiences that you may have had with the structured academic controversy. So please feel free to turn on your mic or drop something into the chat if you have any questions about affirmative action and AAPI community and what that means in the context of cultural solidarity. There's a lot that I just went through, but I do want us to take a breather right here and to review the slides in our digital workbook, respond to the chat prompt right here about how you may have used the structured academic controversy in your classes. So if you haven't used the structured academic controversy in your classroom before, I definitely would recommend using the student handout that I shared in the chat. That's a great resource to guide you and your students through the process.
We're getting some good. Malia has not used it. Kim has. Says that there's sentence starters for academic discourse have been key to increasing access. Diane hadn't used it, but she's going to try it out now. All right, Diane, let us know how it goes.
And if you're still reading the documents, thank you. I had a lot of fun researching some of the sources. Yeah, Teach Democracy definitely has a lot of good resources there as well.
Yeah. My experience with the structured academic controversy was that I felt like my students were pretty engaged. And I think for me as a teacher, I really enjoyed the structure and invited. And I always recommend this to teachers who still maybe are a little uncomfortable with letting their students have debates or conversations. The structured academic controversy it's timed, it's clear, it's very organized and makes you feel like, okay, I still have control of this conversation. I tell them when to start talking, when to stop, and then we work towards consensus.
So I do want to thank everyone for their time and their patience with this. I do want to end our evening together with an opportunity for us to share out any gratitude that we have with our discussion partners in our breakout rooms, with anything else that you want to put out into the universe as well. But please, some gratitude is always welcome for our participants here, especially from me, for all of you being here on a late afternoon, early evening.
Yeah, I second that, Ben. Thank you all so much. I mean, it's the middle of the week and you all have put in a full day and joined this professional development afterwards. Thank you so much. Please note that this is recorded, so we will be able to share the recording with you. We usually post them on YouTube. That way you could pause and resume at your own convenience. You even stop and reopen it the next day and it'll pick up where you left off. So we'll make an announcement via email of all of these recordings when they've been posted to YouTube and they're ready for you to view and share with your colleagues. And we also ask that you complete this evaluation. We got some really good feedback from you all. We know that these 2-hour workshops can be challenging, but they're also filled with great resources. So let us know how you think we did and what you think about the resources in this evaluation. We really take your feedback serious, you all. So appreciate you doing that too. So Peta has put the evaluation link in the chat. And I don't know if Ben or Amps or Peta want to add anything here, but it is 6:25. We have dinner to make and some relaxing to do, or maybe we have some other things to do, but we all have the rest of this time for our personal lives. But before you all leave, we're doing 2 workshops. We're actually doing 3, but we're talking about 2 here. The first one is for 10th grade world history teachers. It's called Themes in World History. Themes are taken from the framework. The history framework recommends different themes in teaching world histories, and one of them is environmental transformations. So we're looking at the impact of climate change on China and El Salvador, and looking really at migration, immigration patterns resulting from those. And then we also have this really exciting workshop that's a week long at the beautiful La Plaza Museum across the street from Overa Street. And we are featuring art, looking at the ways that teatro and poetry and music and even cooking can be used in ethnic studies and history classrooms. So we'll have scholars and artists will have performances and talks and teacher leaders modeling lessons and catered lunches, and it's going to be great and it's free. So we're asking that you RSVP because we have limited space for that. And with that, folks, so I guess want to wish you a good evening. And if you have any questions, feel free to stick around. And we'll be happy to answer any questions that you might have.
Thank you.